Yet another recommendation from my writing group, specifically Sage. For this one, I'm going to read the description straight from the Amazon page because it describes this story far more eloquently than I think I could. The Emperor needs necromancers. The 9th necromancer needs a swordswoman. Gideon has a sword, some dirty magazines, and no more time for undead nonsense. Tamsin Muir's Gideon the Ninth unveils a solar system of swordplay, cutthroat politics, and lesbian necromancers. Her characters leap off the page as skillfully animated as arcane revenants. The result is a heart-pounding, epic science fantasy. Brought up by unfriendly, ossifying nuns, ancient retainers, and countless skeletons, Gideon is ready to abandon a life of servitude and afterlife as a reanimated corpse. She packs up her sword, her shoes, and her dirty magazines and prepares to launch her daring escape, but her childhood nemesis won't set her free without a service. Harrowhark Nonagesimus, Reverend Daughter of the Ninth House and Bone Witch Extraordinaire, has been summoned into action. The Emperor has invited the heirs to each of his loyal houses to a deadly trial of wits and skill. If Harrowhark succeeds, she will become an immortal, all-powerful servant of the resurrection, but no necromancer can ascend without their cavalier. Without Gideon's sword, Harrow will fail, and the Ninth House will die. Of course, some things are better left dead. Set in space in an unknown system, at least I think it's a fictional system, the majority of the book takes place on the planet of the first house where the trials take place. The main characters of this book are Gideon and Harrow, an unlikely pair forced together by circumstances and requirements. Gideon has never wanted anything but to be somewhere else, but despite her numerous attempts to defy her situation, she has been kept around by Harrow, who considers her a right pain in the ass. Though neither cares for the other, the two form a necessary partnership to survive the trials ahead. I have to say that the dialogue is top-notch, very funny, and especially witty. It is half the reason to read this book. As for the characters, the names make it hard, at least for me, to remember most of the side characters, but as for Gideon and Harrow, they're compelling enough as a pair and on their own to make this book worth the read. Harrowhark Nonagesimus has been invited to a trial that, if she succeeds, will grant her the chance to become a lictor, but to do it she must rely on the skills of her reluctant cavalier, Gideon. Recruited with the promise of freedom to pursue her own desires, Gideon steps into the role as they travel to the first house to participate. That is, assuming they don't kill each other first. This book was a bit of a roller coaster for me, in a few ways. Although I remember being very excited about it when I started, I feel like the book lost some steam once they got where they were going. I think for me, I was expecting much more of the Hunger Games style of event where they would need to compete in duels, make challenges, and have their respective adventures complement each other. But instead it seemed like a slow burn murder mystery where instead of sword battles and challenges of wit, it was a slow exploration of a haunted house of sorts. Now, I freely admit that I'm not really interested in necromancy as a subject, that had it not been recommended to me, I probably never would have touched it, but what really struck me is that what I liked about it was the interactions between Harrow and Gideon, and I felt that for a large part of the book it wasn't really played to the best effect. I think that if they'd been portrayed more as the odd couple and such, it might have worked better for me, but as it was, Harrow spends a long time away from Gideon, and they just sort of wander around the facility trying to pass its various tests, which appear to be based on scientific theorems. Most of the characters didn't really stand out for me, and I think that's due to the insular nature of the setting. We really never got to see much of the world that these characters are inhabiting. For a series ostensibly set in space, only a small fraction of the story occurs there. While the story was well written, I think that it just wasn't compatible with my sensibilities. I think that it was missing something, at least in my case. I would have liked to see more than just the test area, and maybe some more interaction between the two main characters. As a book that was pitched to me as lesbian necromancers in space, I never really felt like I got 2 of 3 of those things. Sisters maybe, but I never felt the passion between them, and very little actual space. I found myself debating dropping the book, but I finished it just because I had promised the person who recommended it to me that I would, but sadly it just wasn't compatible with my interests. Nevertheless, I appreciate the recommendation, and while it wasn't for me, maybe it'll work for some of you. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, click the subscribe button and leave a comment below. See you next time.